Hello.
Hello, Maxwell and Shamo. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
hello. I'm hearing you very clearly.
Can you hear me now better?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, just moving out of the room so that we can avoid the echo. Is it much better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. This is your very own Dr. Otieno Menya. There has been some technical hitch throughout this process, and so there might be an echo in the background. Maxwell, you can tell me if you're still hearing the echo.
I'm no longer hearing the echo. Truthfully,
Perfect. Um,
yeah.
I want to say that it's really exciting for us to have all of you in as speakers. Unfortunately, I've not yet been able to admit Sally in as a speaker. But I can see we have Shamo and we have Maxwell on, and Sally, if you're on chat, I have had to move away from my computer so that we can have this conversation. And I want to give a shout out to all the people who are joining in today. And perhaps I just want to say that this is a very, very, very important conversation. I really would like us to have a very good conversation that is not interrupted with technical hitches. And so I'm going to request my two speakers, Maxwell and Shiamo, and all of us who are live, because I know that we'll not be able to do this for long because of the technical hitches. But because we have quite a number of people already online, I thought it was just nice to come online and have you introduce yourself, Maxwell and Shamo. And then we are going to postpone this conversation to next weekend so that we can sort out all our technical hitches and make sure we have a good and profound conversation. But because you're already here, Maxwell, please introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about yourself and what they should expect to hear from you next week, hopefully, when we get everything sorted out.
Okay. My name is Max Otieno,
Mhm.
now popularly known as Dr. Max. I am mainly a WhatsApp teacher. I'm an unqualified teacher, but I was innovative enough to create some WhatsApp groups.
Mhm.
The reason why I enrolled news is because last year I used to I taught the students to manage to get um, 41 A's, 41 distinctions, and almost all of them are going to university. Uh, uh, a brief description.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Max. As he calls himself, he is rightfully called Dr. Max, even though he uses the tag unqualified teacher. But he's talking about his innovation and his engagement with the students in Zimbabwe, where almost all his students scored A's in the national exams, and most of them are headed to the university. And today I had the pleasure of speaking to one of them, and they sent us a recorded message just to tell us about the academy. And next week we will be playing that so that we can hear from the students themselves, even as we dig in deeper into the WhatsApp Academy down in Zimbabwe. And then we have Shamo with us. Shamo is from Botswana and he's also recently done a very innovative activity, learning activity in Botswana. And this is now not about mathematics, but about something else. So Shamo, welcome. Please say hello to everybody and tell us a little bit about your contest so that we can all know what to expect in the coming week when everything is sorted out.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Well, my name is Tiamo Madubi, and just finished my high school last year. And
Mm-hmm.
recently, I hosted a debate competition which was held virtually using WhatsApp. Hey, so it was a very fun thing to do. It was very interactive, and the response was
Mm-hmm.
great. We also had audience all over from the US, so it was, I would say, it was a very, very good competition.
Perfect. So we'll be hearing about, on one end, a WhatsApp academy that was used to train or to tutor students in mathematics. And then we have Shamo from Botswana who will be talking to us about a debating contest, an interactive debating contest that was done on WhatsApp platform. And it was interactive, as Shamo says, it was fun, and it had audience from different parts of the world. How do you do that? Or how does one achieve that using WhatsApp? And what were some of the lessons, best practices, innovations, and challenges that were faced that we can all learn from as a continent? Now, those are some of the things we were supposed to be discussing today, but because of the technical hitches, we are not going to have a full conversation. But because this is a very, very valuable conversation, my tech is that we must make sure everything is in place before we have these conversations so that we can carry the lessons with us. We can ask each other questions. We can see what this means for us, even in terms of teacher training, in terms of policy. And then we will be having our third speaker, Sally. Sally runs interventions in the area of robotics and coding, and she'll be talking to us as somebody who runs interventions in a number of countries, Botswana, Zanzibar, South Africa, and she'll tell us a few other countries, how WhatsApp has continued to be the engine through which she's managing, running, and steering their intervention. So there's quite a bit going on across the continent using the social media platform WhatsApp. I know in other countries they do not use WhatsApp, they use Telegram, and we'll be looking at learning and hearing about that. So today, unfortunately, we're not going to have a full show, but it was important that I acknowledge and send out a shout out to each person who has taken time, who has been patient to wait, even as we try to sort this out and is finally online. It is unfortunate that we cannot go on, but this again are some of the experiences that we go through as we think about digitization of education in Africa. But it also talks about the resilience we must have, as will be showcased by our speakers, Maxwell, Shamo, and Sally. So today, this is going to be one of the shortest teacher talk um, radio show. We are not going to consider it as a complete radio show. It is an appetizer, it's a teaser. Of course, normally as we start the shows, your very own Africa's education doctor and education evangelist, I normally start off with a poem. And today I was ready to recite a poem on WhatsApp. I checked around and looked for poems on WhatsApp. Unfortunately, all I could see were poems that are about social activities. But again, I picked one of them so that we could use it as an opening to have a conversation about the transition in mindsets before before the pandemic. I believe the pandemic steered us into this global disruption. And just to give us a sense of what's gone on in Africa, I was looking at a report that was done by an institution in Nigeria. It was titled Learning During a Pandemic. And they outlined how Nigeria went around learning during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And when they did the analysis, over 60% of the interventions that the learners were able to access were those that they could access from the mobile phone. 44% of them were actually interventions that were running on social media platforms. So there's something here for us to pay attention to as a continent. Indeed, the radio and the TV still remains as one of the most accessible, reachable, and implementable, if I may use those terms, um, avenues for implementation, and that is still going on. I mean, over millions of children. There was an attempt to reach millions of learners across the continent through radio and TV. But what Maxwell and Shiamo and Sally are here to tell us is, in addition to the radio programs and the TV programs, we must start looking keenly as a continent on the social media platforms, especially WhatsApp and Telegram. So as I draw towards a close, I just want to acknowledge all those people who are here. Sobia, thank you for coming in, and all the other people who are online. I also want to announce that from next week, we will introduce a new segment. It was supposed to be introduced today, a segment about Africa's education system concoction. The issue is Africa is made up of many countries, and it is important. And through this show, we want to find out, how is the education system of each of the African countries? What is common? What is different? And so, in each of our shows, we'll have a teacher from one country tell us a little bit about their education system. And already, we had one teacher from one of the African countries who had already recorded their message and was supposed to be the first one aired on that segment today. But we'll keep that for next week. I will leave you guessing which country that is. I want to try and find out if Maxwell and Shamo could guess which African country we might be stepping into for the first time during this show or next show. So, Maxwell, what's your guess? What's the country that we might be hearing about next week? It's a wild guess, but go for it.
Africa is too big.
Yes, it is too big. So try to guess which country we might be hearing from next week. We were supposed to hear from them this week, but give it a guess, give it a try.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia? Why Ethiopia? Or it's just a wild guess?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Shiamo, what about you?
Well, that's a very tough one. Like Maxwell said, Africa is a very big continent. But
It is, it is.
yes, yes. And I'll go for Ghana.
You'll go for Ghana. So we have
Yes.
two proposals here, that it might be Ethiopia, or it might be Ghana, or it might be one of the other countries. Africa is a big country with, I mean, a big continent with many countries. But it's time we found out what is going on with each of our education systems, so that we can see how we can cross pollinate and how we can learn from one another. But you know what? One of the two is right, even though they do not know who it is, but one of them, Maxwell or Shamo, one of them is right. The recorded message, because we already recorded the message, one of them is actually right. Quite a wild guess. So we have to come back next weekend and find out who was right. Was it Shamo from Botswana, or was it Maxwell from Harare, Zimbabwe? So that's very interesting that in the first guess, one of you got it right. I don't know how that came about, but we'll see how that happens. So yeah, so it will either be Ghana or it will be Ethiopia. We'll be finding out what's their education system, and we'll be hearing a little bit more from that teacher what their experience was, if any, in using WhatsApp or Telegram um, for teaching and learning. So we are going to almost, before we close, I want to take it back to Maxwell and to Shiamo to just tell us, to say hi to the others, perhaps tell us a little bit about their countries now that you're here. How is the Zimbabwean education system? And what do you want to just leave out as a bite to the teachers as we wait, and the listeners as we wait for next week, when we'll have sorted out the pod bin technical issues? Maxwell, let's start with you.
Okay, you would like to know about
Zimbabwe's education system, a little bit, a little bit.
a little bit, right?
Mhm.
I think you in general terms, Zimbabwe is one of the best educational systems in Zimbabwe. even if you would look at the literacy rate, right, in the
Mm-hmm.
world, I think in the top five, if I'm not mistaken. At one moment, we're even number one, and we spent a lot of years on number two. So in terms of
Mm-hmm.
literacy, right, we are one of the best in the world. Now, the problem is we have some infrastructural problems. I think that's one of the major
Mm-hmm.
issues, and this involves the shortage of desks, the shortage of other relevant furniture, even chalks, even the classrooms. And
Wow.
some of the schools, or most of the schools, are in rural areas where there are water
Mm-hmm.
shortages, where there's shortage of electricity as well. There's little or no electricity in those areas, and the teachers have to travel from the urban areas many kilometers to the rural areas. So those are some of the problems, and they are inherent, and they are part and
Okay.
parcel of us. That's why we're trying to come up with the technological side of things so that we
Mm-hmm.
can also bypass that. For example, when I'm talking about my WhatsApp teaching, there are a lot of physical things that we can bypass.
Mm-hmm.
Even the wearing of uniforms, of course, it's also important. And even we would like to move the technology while we are bypassing some of the problems we are facing. Even the wearing of,
One.
of uniforms, yeah, can be catered for by WhatsApp. you know, yeah, and even encompassing as many students as possible. We also have a
Interesting.
technological problem.
Mm-hmm.
We are in 2021, so we also have to move on with the time. But in
Okay.
Zimbabwe, not in
Okay.
Zimbabwe, generally in Africa, internet is really a problem. You know,
Okay.
so those
Thank you
those are
for
some of the
painting that.
problems. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you for painting that. I mean, one thing you say is that you are amongst the best in the world in terms of literacy once upon a time, but you've also outlined some of the challenges. And of course, I like the assertion that we are
yes,
not getting frozen by the challenges. We are not getting paralyzed out of the analysis of the challenges. Instead, the challenges are supposed to be an inspiration so that we find ways of
yes,
bypassing some of those
yes,
challenges. And as you say, your WhatsApp Academy is one of the examples of potential ways of bypassing some of the challenges and looking at overcoming some of the needs. So we'll come back to that conversation. That will create a great context. But I want to go to Shiamo, and what I want you to do in terms of outlining the system for, in this case, just tell us how many years do you spend in primary school, secondary school, into university, and do you know what kind of curriculum is being implemented in Botswana?
Thank you. Well, in primary school, we spent roughly 7 years.
Mm-hmm,
Then moving on to our senior school, it's divided into two. There's the junior secondary school and the senior secondary school, where you spend
mm-hmm,
3 years in your junior secondary school, 2 years in your senior
mm-hmm,
secondary school, and
mm-hmm.
that's when you can now move on to your tertiary education, where you spend roughly 5 or 4 years, depending on the course you chose.
Oh,
Then,
quite similar.
yes,
Go,
yes,
go ahead.
yes. Then, in terms of the curriculum, it actually changes from primary school to the level, the different stages of education. And personally, I feel there's so much that needs to be done. Speaking from the mindset of a student, it's high time
Mm-hmm.
the education system and the curriculum in Botswana become revised, because it's so outdated and there's a lot that
Ooh,
can be done. Yes.
wow.
From a student's perspective. Yes.
From a student's perspective, um,
Yes.
Shamo is quite assertive. He says their curriculum is fairly outdated. There is more that can be done. And this is a really interesting sound bites from our guest today because the value for this show um, is us looking into. Uh, sorry, I'm having an echo from somebody. Mm, okay, so yeah, so it's great that we are all talking about some of the things that need to change, and that is part of the reason we are having this show to look at what is going on well in Africa and what could we collectively reflect on and act on for to transform so that we can get a better education system for this generation and the next generation. So, okay, so as we said, this is a teaser conversation in preparation for next week's conversation when we'll be talking about WhatsApp, what's going on in Africa in terms of teaching and learning using the WhatsApp platform. Our main platform, Podbean, which is our host, there seems to be a challenge. I think the challenge could be with the app, or it could be with my computer. I couldn't get the speakers on, and I know we can't go on like this because I'm using my phone, and I know we will not be able to run the full length of the show. So, on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming online today, for being here, hearing our voices. Sally, please check something. Sally, we will hear her voice on Sunday next week. But Sally has some very interesting um, um, insights about using WhatsApp, not just to engage with the learners, but also to engage with the policymakers, the ministers of education of the day, the education policy analysis of the day. And it will be very interesting to see the intersection about what's going on outside with those who are shaping the interventions and what's going on in actual teaching and learning. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for coming online today for my show, which is not a full show. As you know, this is your very own Dr. Herine Otieno, and I go by the title Africa's own education doctor and education evangelist. And if it's me talking, if it's the Sunday afternoon show on the Teacher Talk Radio, then we are talking issues and matters Africa's education. So I look forward for our conversation. Please look out for Maxwell and Shiamo online through Twitter. Start having conversations with them, and let's get ready for the real conversation next Sunday. Maxwell, your parting shot to everybody. What should they expect next week on Sunday?
They must anticipate a great insight of how I helping students have the great teachings and WhatsApp. I think we have been saying it in passing and not in detail. Next Sunday it will be real fireworks. I will be exploring more if there are any other teachers who can even join into the initiative. I will be explaining everything in detail, and it will help them a lot. That's what I can say. So next week it will be real fireworks.
Great. Real fireworks. That's the word. Shiamo, do you have something else to say? Parting
Well,
shot?
next week the audience should be expecting something innovative, something out of the ordinary. They should really they should expect what the next generation is holding for them. So let me leave it to next week, hey?
Okay. You should be expecting what the next generation is holding for them. So that brings us to the end of our show today. Remember, what should you expect next week? Fireworks from Harare, Zimbabwe, and innovation and exciting stuff from the next generation right from Botswana. And remember, Maxwell has promised if you're a teacher and you may be interested in starting something like what he's doing, he will be telling us the details, the inside out of his process. And hopefully, we can have many Dr. Max and many Shiamos planted across the continent for the benefit of our children. See you next Sunday. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.